dreams. Dreams are made of these. The mind of God communicated to a man of God in crisis. And this is the Grace Hour Show. Pastor Renaldo Brown is with me. I'm Pastor Steve Andrulonis. We're coming to you from our studio here at Greater Grace Church in Baltimore. And last time that you and I were together, we talked about the dreams of Daniel 2.
Yes.
And this was the dream that came to King Nebuchadnezzar. Here we see Daniel receiving the dream direct from above. And this is another period in his life. Nebuchadnezzar is gone. Belshazzar, who is a descendant of Nebuchadnezzar, he is not ruling and reigning in the character of Nebuchadnezzar. He has no humility. We've already read that if we're reading Daniel 1 through 5, 6. We've already seen that Belshazzar has seen the finger of God and lost his life. But that's another part of that's been covered in another episode of the Grace Hour Show, so you can listen to that. But in this case, we're talking about, and I think it's good that we got to address both dream sequences because, as we talked about last time, in Nebuchadnezzar's case, he's looking at governments from human vantage point.
That's right.
And here, human government on earth, we're going to get like how God communicates, the communication from heaven and the symbolism here. Again, we have beasts. We have beasts, and they're unusual beasts. And, Daniel is, it says, in the first year of Belshazzar. So we know how Belshazzar ends already, but now we know that, Daniel, maybe he's, what is there? He's the counselor emeritus.
Yes.
He's not the he and the three Hebrew boys maybe are not at the seat of the table for this king like they were for Nebuchadnezzar. And we got a very good graphic picture of how God dealt with Nebuchadnezzar and brought him to humility. And, when we read this, we know that Belshazzar was told these things, but now, it's sort of like, I put this with the king that succeeded Solomon, Rehoboam. He had, he talked to the older guys and they said, if you do it this way, everything will be great, hunky dory. But then he talks to his frat boys and he decides we're going to do it this way.
That would be his posse.
Yeah. And so, and I'm thinking Belshazzar, he knows this thing, but it's like once you get on the throne and you get a little comfortable and the crown is on your head, it's like you do things a little bit different. But in the midst of this, God is still communicating to his man who is right there in the circles of power. So introduce us.
Well, I like the idea of transitions because a lot of transitions happening here. You know how you watch a show or TV and a guy has a flashback and it has that sound there, wah, 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 and it goes back in time. That's chapter 7. It's like Daniel's sitting there and he's thinking backwards. And chapter 7 is actually about 10 years before chapter 5 and chapter 6, roughly 10 years. So he's thinking back. It's almost like this dream is a reflection. I can say it that way. And so that's the trick. So we don't want to get confused there. You did a good job pointing that out, that it's going backwards. And Daniel's pretty much retired. But what I like about it, first of all, is Daniel's not sitting on his leaves. He's still useful in his old age. God's still speaking to him, which is another transition. The first half of Daniel is God is speaking to individuals and Daniel was interpreting their dreams. But now God is speaking to Daniel directly. And that's interesting that under these kings, evidently God feels the need to speak directly to Daniel. So the second half of Daniel is God speaking directly to Daniel and interpreting his own dreams or his own revelations or his own visions. But it's interesting here also, too, that this is kind of like a second round of God's revelation of the vision that we got in chapter 2. Chapter 7's vision or dream, we say dream, is kind of like an amplification of chapter 2. There's similarities there, but he doesn't just, it's like from God's perspective, he gives more detail. We get more detail about the person of Antichrist, which is also interesting. So we also get more information about evil. We also get more information about Jesus.
Ancient of Days.
That's it.
Son of Man.
We sung that yesterday. So there's a lot of, it's almost like what Daniel gets personally is more intimate, more specific and a lot more eternal in his viewpoint, which is helpful because I have to have divine viewpoint. When you look at the image in Daniel chapter 2, that's more from man's perspective. And
Exactly.
man sees himself tall. He sees himself as a statue, idolatrously speaking. But then from God's perspective, when we don't operate with God in chapter 7, we're like beasts.
Yeah.
Like this, you see that reference throughout the scriptures of an unregenerate man operating like a beast. Because we're left to our carnal natures. We respond to social influences in the flesh. So we're beast-like. So that's why I think God uses the metaphor for animals to represent different types of strong men, because man doesn't see himself as a beast. Man sees himself as a statue in chapter 2, but God sees your statuesque viewpoint as beast-like.
Yeah.
And then I like the development of evil in the sense that it's a continuation of God's plan. And I like the way God says it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better, Daniel. But on the other hand, take heart.
Yeah.
Because I know how the story ends. Take heart. There's going to be an Ancient of Days. There's going to be someone's going to rise up. That little stone that becomes a mountain in chapter 2, he gives a lot more definition.
Yeah, it's great. I think, we look at the Bible, me and you, maybe not everyone. We don't parse the Bible so much and like detach it from its whole. And I'm thinking like when we're looking at this, we could go and we could see like man's efforts have always been about erecting something that sort of reaches toward what's in their hearts already, because they were made in the image of God, and he set eternity inside of them, Ecclesiastes. So this draw to what is above and beyond is certainly something God activated and designed, but like it's not about building the tower as in Babel, and it's not about erecting a statue, because we see the statue when the view that we got in Daniel 2 was that the statue starts golden and then it gets all at the bottom. It's like it's clay and iron and they don't go together, and then the organic comes in, the mountain comes and crushes everything, and the true mountain is established. So. Amen. What we're looking at here, I tie to the end of the book of Job. Now, we know that Job is wrestling with everything.
Gotcha.
And then God comes and meets him. And then there's this interjection. Job says, I lay my hands upon my mouth. I said too much. I've done too much talking. You talk to me. And then it's interesting because, people have spent a lot of time, scientifically, DNA analysis, trying to figure out what is behemoth and what is Leviathan? And I'm thinking we see, if we connect it to this, these are beasts that are things that we can't comprehend. You say behemoth is a hippopotamus. Well, perhaps, but I'm thinking the beast points to human strength and the lust of the eyes, and then Leviathan points to the pride of life and the spiritual dynamic. Because we see like in the description of the beast, it's like it's not a beast that we know about.
Right.
It leaves an oily slick. It's got like these scales that are two together, and that to me is like there are times that we know about. I mean, Frank Peretti said it in that novel he wrote years ago, This Present Darkness or something like that. He talked about like hell being able to like sort of fuse itself together as the scales of Leviathan to a certain point. But, it's still, you're still talking about cosmic rebels that at a certain point, I think in the end of that one, I'm sorry, I'm spoiling if you've never read that book, but I think at the end of the book, there is a split in the forces of hell. One demon force doesn't want to submit to the other demon force, and everything falls apart. And so I'm thinking like when we look at God communicating to Job, his man. Job is a priest. And like we see, he becomes a priest at the end of that.
He does.
And God there's behemoth. I think it's the human strength, natural iron strength. And then it also points to the pride of life, which is like we talked about it last time. We talked about the artistic, the political kind of thing that's like sort of clay, and we try to put them together. And here we get beasts that, like the first beast is the lion with eagle's wings. And okay, we understand that. Lions, the roar, eagles, the sky. It's sort of like iron and clay in some way, but it's on a higher level, right? Rescue me.
Rescue
me. I'm starting to talk in circles.
I like the grab for Job. That's fresh. That Leviathan, which speaks more about the pride of man, kind of ties into more with chapter 2.
Yes.
And the behemoth rather ties into chapter 7.
Yeah.
That's a good grab. That's a good grab. I like that because when God thinks about the activity of man without his involvement, we're beast-like.
Yeah.
We're out of control. And if you watch all these animals, what makes them so ferocious is not just their strength, but also just the indecisiveness that they have, the uncontrollable rage. They don't seem to be organized. Really.
Yeah.
When you see the statue looks organized because man thinks he's organized in Psalm 2, right? Man makes plans, so he's organized. So chapter 2 of Daniel looks planned, like a man planned that.
Yeah.
Right? And God allows man to plan. But then from God's perspective, you're a bunch of beasts. You're out of control. Look at this.
Yeah.
You're running around raging. You know, you got the lion, the bear, the leopard. And by the way, all of these animals are very, very hard to tame. You're untamable.
That's
really.
right. Yeah.
So God said, this is man. You're out of it. You think you're in control, but you're not. And this terrifying, undefined last beast is the law of unintended consequences. You start out like a lion, you graduate to a bear, you notice each of these animals is less and less able to tame. Then you got a beast that's untamable. He's wild, completely wild. Iron teeth and the horns, which correspond with the toes. But I like the little addition here in chapter 7. It's not in chapter 2 so much. The horn that rises up.
Yeah.
The horn that rises up, the horn that starts to brag and talk. And there's a lot of allusions to the book of Revelation here, Revelation 2, Revelation 7. There's a lot of allusions there, and you can read that in your own time. But what you find is this is very definitive of a antichrist-like person.
Yeah.
And we learn a lot about him. It corresponds with, I think it's verse 25. He wears out the saints.
Yeah.
He's blasphemous. There's a lot of connection here in imagery with this person in the last days at the bottom of the stature, you could say, in chapter 2. And in from the last beast in chapter 7, out of control. But I like that connection you made about Leviathan and the behemoth, both for the end of Job, because that's how it operates.
Yeah.
I mean, Leviathan, you get this idea in chapter...
can you tame him with a hook?
Yeah.
And the idea is we play with our pride and trying to subdue it with, like we said, the heathen rage.
Yes.
And then they imagine vain things to try and control Leviathan.
And
it's like in pride, right?
And then you find out in your desire to control your pride statuesquely in chapter 2, you end up with the uncontrollable beast in chapter 7, which goes from Leviathan to Behemoth. And I think for man, it's shocking to hear that God sees us as beasts without it, because we're so refined with the crown of creation.
Yeah.
And the average listener listening to us today does not consider his life beast-like.
Yeah, no.
I'm above that. I'm intellectually above that. I'm in self-control. There's more books and more guides for self-help and self-control ever than in the history of mankind. Why is that? Because humanistically, man believes he can control himself. He can improve himself. He can rein himself in. That's the new religion. It's like I can control me. And God says, no, you're going to be an uncontrollable wild beast.
Yeah.
Out of control. And the very liberty that you think you have as a beast will ultimately work against you.
Yeah, and I think, when we look at this first, again, we can compare these things side by side. You have the golden head, and then you have the lion, which is supposedly, just about every in the ancient days and even into the Middle Ages, the lion was your figurehead.
Yes.
And eagle, both of them. And we know that this is, and we know that there can be lions, we know that lions can be regal and they can be ferocious, devouring. And an eagle can be, majestic, soaring in there, but it's also what do they call that? scavenger. What is that? What is the name of the bird?
Vulture.
Well, I mean, they all these categories of birds. They eat meat. They come down and they get
carnivore.
Meat. Yeah, they are. They are. There's all the way down to the ravens. There is the omnivore. Whatever they're descendants of the raptors, I mean, they're just like there's a word that begins with an R, I think it is. I can't remember. Someone could, okay, they're not going to. But anyway.
They will one day.
One day we're just thinking about, I'm just trying to think about the way, they have so they're scavengers, they're meat, all these birds, turkey buzzards, they pick squirrels that are roadkill. You see them gathered in the neighborhoods picking that, and this is what an eagle does. An eagle will swoop down and grab anything, small dogs.
What's interesting is that the eagle is also proud, but it's indiscriminate.
Yeah.
So it's like, and this is the dichotomy of man. As glorious as man thinks he is and honorable, at the same time, he'll eat anything.
Yeah.
He'll do anything. He is not beneath him. So it's kind of like it's like Naaman, like he's a mighty man, but he also has leprosy.
Yeah.
I'm an eagle, but at the same time, I could eat anything. So it's like this false sense of glory that, okay, you're so great here, but behind the scenes, besides being under the sun, behind the scenes, you're eating roadkill. So you think, and this is why God sees you like this beast and is glorious of all. This is the most glorious representation of all the four representations.
Yeah.
Even in that, there's corruption.
That's right. And it seems like, when eating at the tree of knowledge of good and evil means that you meld things. So if you're living by human dynamics and trying to craft something only in human strength and human intellect, then you're going to get, you might, at sometimes you might produce a lion with eagle's wings, very royal, great to look at, and it flies above things. But we see that these, the next thing is a bear. It's like, and all he's concerned about is eating the ribs.
And he's definitely, first of all, can't argue there.
I'm sorry,
Guilty. But it's like, you may notice, I like the dichotomy. It comes down where it's an animal that's a lot harder to tame.
Yeah.
I've been in game parks and I've seen lions.
Yeah.
I've been as close as 4 feet to a lion, post meal, by the way.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen guys with eagles that they tame, but you don't see a lot of guys taming bears.
No,
not really. I mean, because it's a very hard animal to tame. And he also eats differently. He just kind of devours. He rips. He tears. Much more violent is the word I want to use. And death, and so it's just like with the statue in chapter 2, which decreases in value and increases in hardness. Yeah. Here it decreases here. I want to say in its operation socially, and also the way it operates in nature. It's a lot more wild. Bears are ridiculously untamed, wild, out of control,
and they sort of look cuddly and cute, but you get up close.
Oh, wow.
And you trigger a mama bear. You could be a jogger and you run through and there's a baby bear nearby the mama bear, and the mama bear doesn't, like you said, indiscriminate. It's like the eagle and the lion will eat whatever it can find. And the same thing with the bear will attack without reason. You're jogging, you think they're cute and cuddly, and next thing you know, you're mauled.
Yeah, you're on a YouTube video getting attacked by a lion.
Yeah.
But it is this breaking down of man. You kind of see this like with the statue in chapter 2. There's this slow weakening. There's an increase in weakening and a decrease in glory. And this is what happens with the fall of man. Man before God, through the process of God's plan, we don't get stronger. If anything, evil increases in man's depravity and man's morality and man's strength decreases as time goes on. We're not stronger, we're morally weaker, and we're organizationally weaker in that way. So you see that going down like from eagles and lions to bears. And bears are a lot more selfish than lions and eagles.
Yeah.
They're a lot antisocial, really. They don't have large packs of bears. They're not so corporative. They have their family, but they're very tight. They're more selfish, I can say it that way.
Yeah.
Not to attack bears, but they're not so much. You don't have huge families of bears. And then it moves down to a leopard.
Yeah.
Which is basically it's quicker.
Yeah.
It's quicker, but not known for really anything. Really.
No, really.
They're not really known for anything in nature. I mean,
they're kind of
they're beautiful. I've seen a few. They're very. It's interesting about leopards, and I've seen this in several national parks. They're very shy. You can go to a game park and see lions easily. You can see bears easily, but a leopard, you can sit in a spot and wait 6 hours and not see a leopard, and it'll be people driving around a tree, and on the top of the tree there's a leopard sitting there, and nobody moves because they will run and you won't see them. You'll be there all day and not see a leopard. They're very hard, very, very shy, but they're stealthy, but they're also shy.
Yeah, and they have that camouflage element to their thing. And here we see the same thing.
Yep.
Like it has 4 wings. And again, we're getting like these animal pictures that are distortions of real nature.
Yep.
It's like, and so a leopard would be camouflaged, but also when it races, it's faster than a lion. It doesn't, a lion hunts. It seems to me that a lion and an eagle hunts, after their perception. They see what they can get, and they make a sort of a design in their mind to get it.
They have a strategy.
Yeah, they have a strategy. Whereas a leopard, it seems like lies in wait, and then all of a sudden there's this furious, fast kind of thing. And some people have commented on this, that this leopard is representative of Alexander the Great. Could be.
Possibly.
And he showed up out of nowhere, and he, fast and furiously over the course of a couple of decades, he, ran rampant throughout this part of the world. So that could be something, but again, we have the same thing. It's very fast. Where did he come from? Like you said, I like the way that your experience in seeing these things is like seeing these things up close in the wild. It's like a leopard shows up, but it doesn't have wings. But here, like, when you think about all of that kind of Hellenistic kind of movement that happened, it was, the idea was like, art, education, politics, and something, and administration. All of that was something that Alexander wanted to bring to the world, because that's why there's so many Alexandrias. Every university city he named for himself, and he's trying to bring this sort of cultural element. So he's a predator.
Yes.
And he's consuming, but he's sleek, fast and hidden. And then he's also got these, in this picture that Daniel gets, he's got these little wings.
He's also, notice the transition from clumsy to, I want to say, kind of stealthy.
Yeah, exactly.
The bear is like, but then you got the leopard, he's like smooth.
Nimble.
Yeah, no one's naming cars after bears. Yeah. No, they're naming cars after leopards and jaguars because they're stealthy, they're modern, and you can see the transition in the nature of man, that man goes from being ferocious. He has the same predator-like nature, but he's much more smoother with it. He's more modern with it. And you can see the graduation in the mind of man. That mind, evil gets sophisticated. You can say it that way. It gets sophisticated, modern, smooth. And you find that in young 28-year-old Alexander the Great. He made more warfare more sophisticated. He made warfare more tactical. He was a genius, actually, at a young age. And this is the maturation of man. God has allowed man to get more clever.
And then
our good
Beast
friend
4.
Well, this is where you get a little. If you're the leopard, you start feeling yourself a little bit. You get a little clever. You're like, that I can do anything.
That's right.
And you create this beast that's uncontrollable because he believes he knows everything. Simultaneously, he believes he can do anything. So this is kind of like the capstone of the pride of man.
Why do you think? I'm interested in your thoughts. Like Daniel, I saw this fourth beast.
Yep.
Look at the words that he uses to describe: terrifying and dreadful, exceedingly strong. It's like he doesn't use those words to describe the other beasts. This is like, this is the progression of life under the tree of knowledge of good and evil. All of a sudden, we've reached this point where man has done some things that he feels very golden about, very silver about, very bronze about, and now we're at the feet, and it's like it's like like that statue, could not have stood for very long on clay and clay and iron feet, and now we get this. Now we get like humanity has crafted its ways of doing things, and now we get to this monstrosity that is like malignancies out of control. Maybe that's a good word.
I noticed the description for the fourth beast is extremely specific. It talks about the activity that he does in a very I want to say amplified way.
Yeah.
We learn more about this particular beast than any of the other four beasts. And it seems like the verbs that are used and adjectives used to describe it are the strongest words that could be possibly used.
It seems like Daniel was most fearful of this beast.
This is the one. I think he was shocked at the entire thing because you can tell later when he starts asking. Okay, this is the one he comes back to.
Yeah.
Later when he's like, "Tell me again about this beast again." It's almost like the other beast. I got it, but this fourth guy, I don't got it. I think he's not so much confused by it, but shocked by it.
Yeah.
There's almost palatable fear. Like this thing sounds like nothing's stopping him.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when we see what men do in this day and age, the evil that we see now, even in our day and age in this world, we see evil that's almost unimaginable. I mean, there's things that happen in the world in evil and sin that no one would dream about 50 years ago, like undreamable evil. And I don't think at this time that he could dream of a beast that could be this way, which is why he doesn't really give it any kind of a name. There's nothing in nature that fits this. It's abnormal.
And it's not like all the other beasts are really organic nature. There's wings, there's leopards, there's but here we're talking about something with iron teeth, and we're talking about a multitude of horns, and this horn and that horn. And I think you're right. I like what you said about Daniel comes back to that beast, and I think it says something to, when people talk about a series on eschatology, you notice everyone's ears in the congregation because we want to know. We want to know how soon is Jesus coming, and like why did Daniel go back to this beast? He's like, okay, well this things are further along, so I need to know. Like, and we see like Daniel's a lot like us, even to the end. Like at the very end, the angel has to tell him, just be quiet.
Yeah.
Just go to the end of your life in peace. I can't tell you everything. I've told you as much as I can tell you.
Which is, it's almost like well, I need a little bit more. Yeah. Because it's like watching the climax of a movie and the power goes out. And what happened to Tommy? Tommy, I don't know what happened to Tommy.
Or you go to one of those Marvel movies and you fail to sit through the till they give you the little piece of the next one. Like you've watched a 2.5, 3 hour Marvel movie, and then, I went with my nephews and they said, we can't leave yet. I said, why? I said, they're showing the credits. Oh, there's something coming. And then we get the next piece of the story. Anyway, sorry. Pop culture reference.
It forces us to stay in our seats a little longer, imagine.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that God really shows us in verse 7 how violent this animal is.
Yeah.
Most of the verbs and adjectives are descriptive of what he will do more than who he is.
Yeah.
He devours, he breaks, he stamps.
Wow.
He does a lot. So that's what I think scared Daniel, because he sees this thing running rampant, rampaging through time. And he says in verse 8, I considered the horns. Okay, because evidently these horns were prominent enough that of all the things he saw about this beast, that stuck out to him, the horns, which goes to, I would imagine in Daniel chapter 2, if you're looking at the statue and you're at human size, what's the first thing you're going to see? The toes, the feet.
Yeah.
So that's going to stick out. You have to look up to see the head. But just walking, the first image you get is the toes. So the same way the 10 horns stick out from that fourth most ferocious beast, and maybe God makes the fourth beast look like that to draw attention to the horns.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe the way the animal is draws your attention to its horns, and the way the horns are on the animal God wants you to see something because horn activity is huge here.
Yeah.
The rest of the dream, horns are a big deal. 3 disappear, 10 act a certain way, then 1 horn comes and has a coup. There's a lot of horn activity here.
Yeah. And I like, well, I'm thinking like you could comment on this about like when he was interpreting Nebuchadnezzar's dream, it's like there wasn't any of this, like, it was very clear. It was like he got the majesty of heaven very clear in how majesty was going to, okay, these iron and clay feet, like you said, toes. Toes are kind of cute too. They're sort of like the bear. It's like they're kind of cute, the little toes. We're not getting here Daniel is getting, like you said, the full thought. Like, don't look at those toes because, those toes get crushed and the whole thing falls down and then a great mountain comes. But now when you see here, you're looking up at, I think you're right. The other image, everything was drawn to the toes, and then the crushing comes from the mountain of heaven. And now we get like, now we're looking up like, okay, man is going to create a kind of system, lots of horns, lots of leaders, and lots of like you said, what's it said here? It says it was different from all the beasts that were before it, and like you said, devouring, breaking, stomping. It's like, and Daniel has to process that, and then I like that the next after we get through that, a mouth speaking great things, and then we get a transition, right?
Yep.
We get the next transition to the Ancient of Days.
The other dream, yeah. It's interesting is when you look at verse 23, compare it to verse 7 and 8, every time he talks about the fourth beast, he always talks about what's it going to do?
Yeah.
How is it operating? But the second dream, you're right. That's where the hope is at. By the way, there's the hurt and there's the hope.
Yeah.
When you get that fourth beast, you get those beasts, there's a whole lot of hurt. And you can see it in Daniel's countenance. He says it in verse 15. I was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. He was moved. And even believers today, people listen to this program, they could have a lot of fear in these days. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but I can be very fearful. If I only get that part of the Bible, if I just get the harm, if I just get the hurt, if I just get the darkness, if I just get that viewpoint in life, I could be scared.
Yeah.
Because I could be living in this fantasy of chapter 2 where I'm this tall, proud statue when really underneath the scenes, spoiler alert, chapter 7, I'm living like a beast. And when your eyes are open spiritually, you see that beast-like nature and you see this coming thing, it can be scary. But then this is where you have to land into the second dream. And this is like the old cowboy movies where the good guys win in the end.
Yeah.
The guy rides up on the horse and there's the theme music and things get dealt with.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is these pieces here on the Ancient of Days and the Son of Man. These are the things that, these are basically pieces of information for the hearts of Daniel and if the 3 Hebrew boys are alive, share these things because this is for whatever beast that we see, there is going to be this Ancient of Days and the Son of Man, one and the same, and they aren't going to be, lions with wings or leopards or monstrosities with iron teeth. They're going to be, just notice it's more than golden. This is like really royal and regal and everything about priesthood and the right exercise of power, right?
It's also interesting that in this dream, both dreams, this is the only real person.
Yeah.
Everything else there is personified. It's animals with people-like characteristics. Even the fourth beast and the horns have people-like characteristics. But the real person, the real man, the real actually individual is the Ancient of Days Son of Man references. So in other words, in your story of beasts, God does not appear in the vision as a beast. He does not appear in the vision as a statue, but in chapter 2. But he appears here as a man.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that he comes in as the real man, the God man. And he comes in really like the hero. He kind of comes in and saves the day. He's got the white clothes of purity. He's got the silver gray hair, which speaks of maturity. He comes in, he's being served, and you may notice that there's thousands with him, but there seems to be more thousands before him, which could be a point to second coming, which means that it appears that there's more guys with Christ than before Christ, which speaks of a lot of folks being judged.
Yeah.
Which says to me that a lot of those people that are being judged align themselves with those beasts.
The books were opened. That's a big thing. And we get that in, the conclusion of that interpretation at the end of the story, which is in Revelation.
Yep.
But I like this Ancient of Days. I think this is maybe the biggest, because we noticed again, everything about these beasts is in motion. And then we see in Job, going back to Job 1 and 2, we see that the devil describes himself as being in motion. And, he is a roaring lion. But here we see the introduction of the Ancient of Days. Thrones were placed and the Ancient of Days took his seat. And I think this is this is a real comfort to Daniel.
Sure.
Because he's been through, everything that he's known in his life has been about movement, destruction. He was led away into captivity. He's watched one kingdom come and a kingdom fall. And now here he is seeing this progression of kingdoms. And then God introduces this, like at the end of the dream to Nebuchadnezzar, there's going to be a mountain that fills everything. That's going to be, and who sits on the throne of that mountain? It's this, the one who has no beginning and no end. It is the priest after the order of Melchizedek. It is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, the Ancient of Days. This piece, and we're gonna, as we finish this chapter, we're gonna see that, this is really good that he gets this, but he still has questions. It's like, okay, I understand all that, the rest of God, the Sabbath, the finished work, the Ancient of Days, the Son of Man, but this beast, this fourth beast, I think I really need to know more about him, right?
Bring that back. Don't
It's really kind of interesting. You could just, how much fellowship did he sit, and then when did he want to go? How much? Okay, that's good, but I'm still it sort of says something about the nature of people.
Yeah, you're getting it fresh. It's directly to you, just like John and Revelation. But you're confused. By, a lot of it, you're confused by number one. There's a lot of things you've never seen in your entire life.
Yeah.
So you're using a lot of similes to explain what you're saying, because these things are extraordinary, supernatural. So when the natural explains the supernatural, we swing and miss a lot. And we have tons of holes and tons of questions. So it's kind of hard to say specifically everything that Daniel's saying in chapter 7. Number two, he's got this curiosity, which is, I think, is fueled by fear and marvel. He got fearful of this wild animal and the things that are happening in this vision, but at the same time, he's marveling at what he's seeing concerning the Ancient of Days. Like case in point, the thrones go on wheels.
Yeah.
How many thrones on earth do you have wheels, unless you went to Home Depot and put them on the bottom? Thrones don't have wheels, but that speaks about the same thing that God is sending it throughout the book. This juxtaposition between the temporal and the eternal. A throne with wheels is a picture of the authority of God being omniscient. It's everywhere. It can go anywhere. It's the mobility of the authority of God. It's the same thing with these Ancient of Days. I'm not before, I'm not after, I've always been. So that's the omnipresence of God. His victory over the beast is the omnipotence of God. So there's three pictures here: the omniscience of God, the omnipotence of God, and the omniscience of God in this vision that all give you three tremendous characteristics about God in time and in life and in eternity. That I'm all powerful, I'm all present, I'm over everything, and I'm all knowing.
Yeah, I think these passages, I think these passages exist for, it's a very encapsulated kind of thing. The Ancient of Days takes his seat. Then we get this interjection, how everything that the beast had produced gets, is destroyed.
Yes.
And then we come back to the nature of who the Ancient of Days will be and what the extent of his kingdom. We see, and to him shall be given dominion and glory and a kingdom that all peoples, nations, languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. That's this bit here in the middle.
Yes,
is like now when Daniel comes back to this, I want to know more about this. I got to know more about this. It's like God allows him to get his curiosity satisfied just a little bit.
Yeah.
But this piece is the piece that really we've had it announced at our pulpit that we're going to talk about Revelation. And when we're talking about Revelation, the thing is we have to come back to this piece of everything. That's why I love that verse in the King James. It's not that way in other versions, but the verse from Psalm 119, I have seen the end of all perfection. I think it's verse 71, but it's like, this is, you've read Revelation, and like Daniel, you've been given this information about how everything, actually, this is just confirming what you reported to Nebuchadnezzar all these years ago. Like you said, it's 70 years maybe now. He's he's an old man, and he's got, this is the curiosity of man. We just want to know, tell us a little bit more about this fourth beast, and we get. And sometimes I'm wondering, when you open that door, God's oh, okay, here we go, and it just seems like you get a little bit too much. Like now we get this expression of this little horn. Talk about that.
It's interesting that it's like a kid with his dad.
Yeah,
and you say, God, tell me again. Now, I told you in chapter 2.
Yeah.
Tell me again in chapter 7. Tell me again. And this is our walk with God. You make a great point. In my walk with God, there's a lot of revelation, but shockingly, there's more rehearsal of revelation than actually new revelation.
Yeah.
A lot of times God reveals something to you, and then he will rehearse it in John 14:26, and rehearse it and rehearse it. And chapter 7 is basically a rehearsal of chapter 2 with more detail, which is the definition of revelation. It's God's revelations are always progressive. Like with Abraham, God told him a revelation, and then he expounded on it throughout his life. And meanwhile, Abraham still has questions. He's got questions, and God's like, okay, I'll tell you a little bit more. So this is another step. Like, okay, Daniel, I'll tell you a little bit more. I'll tell you about this horn, this Antichrist-like figure, because he's pivotal in the plan to bring the plan forward so that I can come and be who I said I would be.
Yeah.
You don't get that in chapter 2. You don't get so much of this catalyst, this evil catalyst. But I think, and this is interesting, maybe God doesn't reveal that in chapter 2 because of capacity.
Yeah.
Because if he had dropped this in chapter 2, 17, 18-year-old Daniel, as well as Nebuchadnezzar, they both might have been eating grass in chapter 4.
That's right.
So now you got 90-year-old, 85-year-old Daniel.
A little bit more maturity.
He's mature. He's walked through kings.
Got some mileage on him.
And even then, at that maturity, when God drops this, he's like, whoa.
Yeah, and I
bring that back again. Or maybe, watch this, maybe he's reading this, making the chapter 2 connection, and then all of a sudden the fourth beast drops. It's like, wait a minute, that's not what we talked about in chapter 2. Say that again. Like hearing it with that's the part that's new for me. Yeah. I'm walking with you. Like, he what? Yeah. He does who?
Yeah.
Let's go back to that again.
Yeah. I told you about a mountain. Now I'm going to tell you about the one sitting on the mountain.
Yes.
So can you put the two things together? But there is curiosity gets to us. And I like, the little horn. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking you described like a leopard that's like, a leopard that doesn't roar like a lion. Mm-hmm. It's stealthy. And I'm thinking he was captivated by all the horns that he saw. And he said, be careful, because that collection of horns is going to be overwhelmed by like this little... Ecclesiastes talks about a little wise man who saves a city. I'm thinking about a little unwise man who's going to like manipulative kind of person, like the serpent slithered into the garden and did what he did. Mm-hmm. And here's the little horn; he's going to slither in, and And I'm going to say one more thing and let you finish up here. It seems like in the book of is it Numbers or wherever it is, it's like they wanted quail, they wanted meat, they wanted meat. They kept asking God for meat, and he did it, and they got leanness in their soul. And I'm thinking here at the end of the chapter, we see that Daniel's alarmed.
Yeah.
It's like if we would have stopped, Daniel, if you wouldn't have asked so much about the fourth beast, I wouldn't have to give you more information. And now, surprise, you're going to have to deal with it, And it's like, and like the disciples on the Mount of Olives, tell us when. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you that.
Not for you to know.
And then, and then in first chapter of Acts, it's like, hey, is he going to restore the kingdom now? You guys are thinking about it all wrong.
Once again.
So as the Bible is a very human book.
Yeah.
We're getting great revelation, but the curiosity that we have in our hearts, is still prompting us to ask questions that God can't really give us the total answer because we can't handle the truth.
Oh, God. That's not a pop culture reference.
Oh, no, not too much. Jack Nicholson, sorry. Anyway.
I want to also say that the chapter ends where Daniel's not himself.
Yeah.
I mean, verse 28, he's like, I'm troubled.
Yeah.
My thoughts are troubled. My countenance has changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. Why would I keep the matter in my heart unless I had some faith in God?
That's it.
I trusted God.
Yeah.
So as scared as I am, and by the way, wars and rumors of wars and evil, unimaginable evil in our day, even as a believer, knowing Christ can scare you. But why do I keep the matter in my heart? Because I know how to think. We heard last night, Philippians 4:8. I know how to think. I may not always know what to do, but I know how to think. I can think with God. And when I think with God, I find the Son of Man in my life. I find the Ancient of Days in time of my life. And that carries me forward. So I'm aware that there's a little horn. But my aim on a daily basis is towards the Ancient of Days, towards the Son of Man. Because in the atmosphere of that fellowship, I know there's an Antichrist, but there's also the Ancient of Days.
That's amazing. Yep. This has been the Grace Hour Show with Pastor Renaldo Brown. I'm Pastor Steve Andrulonis. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and we invite you to subscribe on these platforms, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Give us a great review. We'd love to hear that from you. And we're thankful as we've gone through these passages of Daniel. There's more to come on the Grace Hour Show. And if you missed any of these things, there is a website for you to access, gracehour.org. You can find an archive of all these programs. So for Pastor Renaldo, I'm Pastor Steve Andrulonis. Sebastian Palmieri has been our engineer. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.